He moved without rushing. It wasn't weariness that slowed him, but the world itself seemed to be moving at a different rate. Dust gathered on the bottom of his pants as his boots landed on the parched ground. The sunset painted the sky with warm oranges, stretching the shadows long and thin. He lost track of how long he'd been walking. It could have been days, weeks, or even months. Time wasn't a way to measure things, but more of a forgotten idea. Counting days was a thing of the past. His name, once important, now felt distant. People used to say it, remember it, repeat it. But in the vast silence of the world, names lost their meaning. Only the quiet remained. His breathing, the beating of his heart, and a feeling, a gentle pull in his chest. It felt like gravity, but softer. It wasn't pulling him down, but leading him forward. There were no signs or maps, just a gut feeling, a soft voice that grew louder each morning when he woke up under different skies. Something was waiting for him. Not riches, not recognition. Something more subtle. He walked past fields untouched by wind. Trees stood still like statues, their leaves barely moving. Birds watched from branches, silent. Even the insects seemed to make their sounds slower, quieter. Then everything shifted. The silence was different. It wasn't louder. It wasn't more full. It was deeper. It was as if another layer of silence had showed itself beneath the first. He stopped walking and held his breath. The air felt thicker, but not heavy. It felt full of memory, of meaning. He looked ahead. Far away, between two hills, he saw a glimmer. At first, he thought it was just the heat making the air ripple. But as he looked closer, he realized it wasn't heat. It was the world slowing down. Everything there moved slower. The clouds floated like thick syrup. The grass swayed almost hardly, as if time wasn't really there. He took a step. The silence welcomed him. It had been ages since he last heard a voice, even his own. Talking felt strange, too loud for a place like this. But in his mind, words came back to him. This is it, he thought. This is where I'm supposed to be. There were stories once, told in bars and whispered by older people. Stories about a village that you couldn't find unless you quit looking. A place where people aged at a different speed, where clocks ticked, but nobody paid attention. A village where time slept. Most people thought it was just a made-up story. He used to think it was nonsense, but that was before the noise of the world got to him. Before he felt empty, even when he was around people. Before he knew what constant motion cost you. Now, he wasn't so sure. As he walked, the world behind him blurred, not disappearing, but softening, like a dream fading away. The road turned gently, then turned into a small stone and moss path. There was no gate, no sign, just a soft line of trees, tall and quiet, forming a gentle path into the unknown. The trees were wide and looked older than anything he'd ever seen. The air smelled rich, like rain and old books. He walked between them. Right away, the noise in his mind stopped. No worries about tomorrow, no weight of yesterday. Only now he stopped again, closing his eyes. For a long time he just stood there, breathing, listening. He could hear his own heart beating. It had been years since he had truly noticed it. When he opened his eyes, the path was different. It was still stone, but soft lamps now lined the side of the path. They didn't flicker with fire, but with a gentle light that seemed to breathe with him. He didn't question it. He walked, and as he moved forward, something strange happened. The further he walked, the less tired he felt. His muscles, tired from miles of walking, now moved with ease. He breathed deeper. His eyes were wide open, not full of energy, but more balanced, like he had finally found the right rhythm. Then, around the next turn, he saw it. Roofs, low and curved, covered in green moss. Small homes tucked into hillsides, like sleeping animals. Smoke rose from a chimney, twisting upward in a perfect spiral, untouched by any wind. There were no fences or roads, just a village, quietly breathing in the folds of time. He stopped at the edge, not sure what to do. Should he go in? Was he allowed? Then a candle was lit in one of the windows. In that soft light, a person appeared. She was old, gentle, not moving. She looked straight at him, as if she knew he would arrive at that very moment. Took a last breath of the air he knew, and walked into the village where time sleeps. The square was behind him as he walked further into the village. The soil underfoot wasn't just ground. It felt like a forgotten memory. Mossy stones greeted him silently, and his steps made no noise, absorbed by the soil, as if they were lost thoughts finally finding rest. The houses weren't constructed. They seemed to have sprouted from the earth. Roofs, draped with vines, curved gently, while round doors were carved into the earth or stone. Windows looked like the blinking eyes of sleepy animals. Each house had a presence, quiet and observant, as if the village itself watched him, not judging, but simply noticing. Curious and patient, he ambled along, his eyes taking it all in. A narrow stream flowed like honey, calm and smooth. Leaves rested on the water, still as could be. A wooden bridge arched over the stream. He paused in the center, his hand on the railing. The wood felt warm, not from the sun, but from the touch of countless hands before his. There were a few people. An older man sat on a stool, carving a small, shapeless piece of wood. He didn't look up, but smiled, not at the man, but at his act of carving, as if each stroke was a prayer. A young girl swept leaves from a path that was mostly clear. Two women sat side by side, weaving strands of grass into circles, not talking, but together in harmony. He felt no need to introduce himself. In this place, introductions weren't required. The village didn't ask about your identity or history. It only wanted to know if you could be still. He kept walking. Past the houses and stream, the village opened into a wider space, like a breath between the trees. At its heart stood a tree unlike any he had ever seen. It was impossibly tall and wide, its bark silver gray, its branches spreading like arms meeting. It didn't sway in the wind. It stood still and alive. He sat beneath it, not because he was tired, but because his body yearned for stillness, and for a change, he listened. The bench, carved from stone, was smooth and soft. As he sat, a breeze brushed through the air, something he did not feel upon entering. The air was calm, with no sound. It was a sigh from the ground. He shut his eyes. Time paused. No thoughts bothered him. No memories returned. Only his breath came and left, slow, deep, and intentional. His lungs breathed in a new way, not of urgency or fear, but of quiet. He became really aware of and took notice of the world differently now, not with his ears. And then she came back. The woman from the window. Her cane tapped softly on the stone as she came closer. She sat beside him without a word. "You feel it now," she said. He agreed with her, his eyes still shut. "What is it?" he asked. "The pace that's real," she said. "The one you were born with that you forgot." He opened his eyes. She didn't have the worn look of city people. Her skin had fine lines, but no worry seemed to cause them. Instead, the lines caused by years of patience. Her eyes were steady, like someone who had listened to the same great song her whole life. "Is this place real?" he asked. She smiled. "You're here. How did I find it? You quit seeking. He thought about that for a while. It was true. He hadn't planned to end up anywhere. He hadn't looked at a map or taken a specific road. He simply followed the silence. Some travel their whole lives, she said, but failed to hear the call. Some hear it, but fear to come. Only a few enter. He glanced around again. The homes, the trees, and the sky hung in twilight. How long can one stay? She leaned her head to the side. That has conditions. Tell me, are you asking about the stillness the village offers? He understood. There was a change. She got up. Join me. There is more. He walked with her on a little path he hadn't spotted before. The path turned and twisted between high grass and low branches. As they walked, the air felt strong in importance. Each sound, each smell felt more pure. A bird sounded like a bell. The smell of pine opened old memories that he had stored away some time ago. They got to a clearing with a circle of stones smack in the middle. The stones were smooth. A group of people was around the rock circle. He took a step, unsure. Sit, the woman told him. He did. The group did not speak to him or exclude him. They had their eyes closed and their hands rested on their knees. All breathed together. It was calm and peaceful for the most part. Then, just like that, he was apart. Not in feeling separated, not in feeling ritualistic, but in rhythm. The stones below him vibrated. The breath of those there was his breath. He shared time. It felt as if, for a brief moment, he was at peace with it, calm, yet alive. When he opened his eyes, the sun had not shifted. Time remained where he left. He looked at the woman. She gave a nod. You're starting to be mindful. Mindful of what? How to hear what is never expressed. The sun didn't bother with rising or setting. It just hung there, painting the village with this mellow, gold light. The sky was like someone's final perfect brushstroke on a painting that was never supposed to actually dry. Everything glowed, kind of holy somehow, even the quiet. The guy was walking by himself now. The woman had disappeared again. Or maybe she was just somewhere else. Everything in this village seemed to fade in and out like thoughts when you're trying to meditate. So he wasn't concerned. His walking was different. It wasn't just slower, but quieter too. Like his feet were learning to be respectful of the ground beneath them. He started noticing things. How the path gave a little under his weight. How the wind seemed to pause as he walked past. It wasn't like the world was reacting to him, but more like the world was just acknowledging him. Like an old friend who'd been gone for years finally coming home. He wasn't really going anywhere special, just letting his attention guide him. A little patch of lavender caught his eye first, then a bunch of wind chimes that weren't making any noise. Then a tree stump, carved into a perfect circle. Maybe a seat, or just a place to chill. He sat down and waited. He didn't know what he was waiting for, but that didn't bother him anymore. The not knowing had become a freeing thing. He heard footsteps behind him. He turned around slowly. A kid, maybe 12 years old, was standing there, barefoot, holding a basket full of apples. He had dark, thick hair and big, patient eyes. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. He just held the basket out to the man. The man took an apple. It was warm. He bit into it, and this sweetness wasn't just in his mouth. It was deeper, like something hitting the base of his soul. It reminded him of a place he'd never actually been, but somehow missed. A kitchen, a mother. A summer afternoon, way before all the noise started, the kid sat down next to him, not saying a word. He grabbed an apple for himself and started eating it slowly, like each bite held a story. They sat there, like that, for a while. Finally, the kid pointed. Way off in the distance, beyond the village, the mountains shimmered, all tall and blue and wrapped in mist. "What's there?" the man asked. The kid didn't answer with words. He started drawing in the dirt with his finger. A spiral, a sun, then a doorway. The man looked at it. "Another place?" he asked. The kid nodded, then added one more thing. A single eye. "To see?" the man guessed. The kid paused. Then he looked right at the man and tapped his own chest. Just once. "To see inside yourself." The man let out a long breath. The mountains. Something about them made him feel restless again. Not like before, when he just wanted to get away, but an urge to go deeper, to really sink into this weird slowness until he found out what was underneath everything. The kid stood up, took the basket, and walked away, not looking back. The man watched him disappear around the corner, then turned back to the mountains. They looked both really close and impossibly far away. He knew somehow that most of the villagers never went anywhere near them. He also knew that one day soon he would, but not yet. He had more to figure out, where he was. He got up and wandered toward the edge of the village, where there were fewer buildings and more trees. He passed a stone well covered in ivy. A black cat was sitting next to it, eyes closed, tail twitching in time with nothing. Past the well was this building that was different than the others. A kind of hall made of stone and dark wood with tall windows that let in light but didn't show anything inside. It didn't even have a door. Still, he walked right in. Inside, it was empty. A really high ceiling. A floor made of smooth stone. In the middle, there was a small fire that wasn't making any smoke, just light and heat. Around the fire were cushions, short stools, and shelves full of stuff that was kind of like books, but also not really. Almost like artifacts. He sat down again. An older man was sitting across from him. He had long gray hair and skin like dried tree bark. His hands were folded in his lap. He didn't say anything, just looked at him. There was no need to say hello or anything. "You stayed," the older man said, not like he was asking a question. The man nodded. The older man tilted his head. "Do you know why?" "Because I remembered how to be still." "That's just the beginning," the older man said. "Stillness isn't just about not moving. It's the space where things start." The man frowned a little. "Start?" "Yeah. The world outside is all about beginnings and endings. Here we go the other way." He didn't get it, but part of him did. "What do you do in this hall?" he asked. "We listen." "To what?" The older man closed his eyes. "To everything that can't talk." A log shifted in the fire, but there was no cracking sound. Just light, just warmth. The older man went on. "The wind, the stones, the voices of people who were here hundreds of years ago, the breathing of the trees, beat of the stars. Everything speaks, if you can get quiet enough to hear it." "How long does that take?" the man asked. The older man opened one eye and smiled a little. "You've already started." They sat there together quietly for a long time. When the man left the hall, nothing had changed outside. The village was exactly the same, but he wasn't. He looked one more time at the mountains in the distance. Still far away, but getting closer. That night, just looking up, you could sense the sky had this thickness to it. It wasn't getting darker. No light was missing. It felt like the space above him went on and on forever. The stars hanging over the village weren't doing that usual twinkle thing. Instead, they gave off this steady, shimmery light, like they were stuck in one place in time, not just super far away. He took in the constellations in the sky. They looked new to him, but at the same time, he had this weird feeling he knew them. It was as if someone had drawn them inside his head way back when he was a kid. The man found himself at the edge of the village. Over there, the last trees met up with open fields. Behind him, the stone houses of the village gave off a soft, warm glow in the dim light that never seemed to go away. In front, there was this gentle hill. It wasn't huge, not like a mountain, but you got the sense it was separate from everything else around. He started to climb. There wasn't any road or path, no sign to be found, just grass that bent down when he stepped on it, and this quiet that stuck to him like a shadow. He made it to the top and turned back to look. The village had this soft, pulsing life to it. A couple windows had lights on. A few doors were still open. You could see smoke from the chimneys drifting up, disappearing into the dark sky. From up here, it all looked so small, like something he might have dreamed up, or maybe a place he hadn't even gotten to yet. He lay down on the grass. The ground still had the day's warmth in it. It felt like the sky came down and wrapped around him. With every breath, he could feel it going deeper into his lungs. You didn't need to close your eyes. The night itself was enough to pull you inside yourself. He stared at one star above. It didn't flicker or twinkle. It was just there, watching him. For a second, he almost felt like he and the star were breathing together. He couldn't say how long he stayed like that. Could have been a few minutes. Could have been hours. Maybe he never moved at all. Then, something changed. It wasn't anything happening around him, but something inside. A memory popped up, not like one of those flashbacks, not like a dream. It was just a calm image coming up from somewhere deep inside. He was a kid, maybe 12. He remembered sitting on the roof of his house. The wind was biting cold that night. He'd snuck out because he just needed to be alone. He and his dad had had this dumb fight. It wasn't about anything big, but it felt like the end of the world back then. He could still feel the roof tiles pressing into the backs of his legs. He could see the stars looking like holes poked in the sky. He remembered whispering into the dark, saying, "I wish the world would just stop." Now, all these years later, it felt like it did. Oddly enough, it didn't scare him. It felt peaceful. He smiled. Then, he spoke out loud. "Thank you." He didn't know why he said it. He just felt it. The words didn't echo or bounce back. They just sounded like themselves. No sound, just words being spoken. It felt like a circle closing. He turned his head a little and saw someone sitting there with him. It was the old woman from the village. He hadn't heard her coming. Her walking stick was nowhere to be seen. She was sitting with her legs crossed, like he was when he was a kid, looking up. No one said anything for a while. Then she spoke. "You're starting to settle in, it seems." He nodded. "I think I could just stay here." "You could," she said. "But should you?" He didn't have an answer for her. Being still, she went on. "It's a good gift, but you don't keep it to yourself. You have to carry it with you." He turned to look at her. "Carry it where?" "To where it's loud." Her words sank in slowly, the way seeds fall in soft ground. "I'm not ready to carry stillness," he said. She smiled a little. "That's how you know you are." He looked back at the village, the lights, the warmth, where there was safety. "I thought this was it. The end." "It never is," she said. "It's always a start where you can relax." She stood up. "When it's time, you'll know." She turned and walked down the hill, fading away into the tall grass. He stayed where he was. He let the stars fall on him, let the hill breathe with him. And then he heard a voice inside. It was his own voice, but older sounding. "You're remembering who you were before the world told you to hurry and run away." He turned his face to the sky again, feeling calm wash over him. The stars didn't seem all scattered. They seemed to have a place. They were a map, not of where to go, but how to be. A breeze blew across the hill, cool and slow. He sat up and spotted the east. The mountains were still there, big, blue, waiting. He understood then. It was soft and quiet, but he knew it was true. He wasn't here to stay forever. He was here to remember, to unlearn the world, to get himself ready. That thought didn't scare him or make him feel like he had to rush. No, it brought peace. He laid back down one more time, closed his eyes. He fell asleep without fighting it, because for once in years, rest felt good. Not like something he didn't deserve. Tomorrow, or whatever came next, would be here soon enough. But tonight, the hill was holding him, and the sky whispered, just calm. He awoke before he opened his eyes. The air around him was warm but cool at the edges, like the moment between dreams and daylight. He felt no stiffness in his limbs, no ache in his joints. Sleep had not just rested his body, it had cleaned something within him. When he opened his eyes, the sky was unchanged, still painted in that eternal dusk, still glowing without glare. The hill was silent, but not empty. A few birds moved quietly through the air, not in flocks, but alone, like thoughts passing without demand. He sat up. The village waited in the distance, unchanged, and yet everything felt different. He made his way down the hill slowly, each blade of grass bent beneath his steps, as if nodding in return. As he crossed the invisible border between hill and village, he realized he no longer felt like a visitor. The village no longer observed him. It embraced him. At the center of the square, a woman waited beside the great silver tree. But this wasn't the old woman. This one was younger, perhaps in her 30s. Her hair was the color of the sky just before rain, and her hands were stained green from herbs and soil. She greeted him with a gesture, a small bow, then turned and began walking. He followed without question. She led him through a part of the village he hadn't seen before, quieter, if that was possible. The houses here were lower, built almost into the ground. Vines draped over wooden beams like living curtains. Small bells hung from branches above, but none of them rang. He wondered if they ever did. They arrived at a circular clearing, surrounded by flat stones carved into seats. In the center was a table made of a single slab of white rock. Upon it lay items that were unfamiliar. Not tools, not books, but objects that seemed to hum with meaning. A bowl filled with dark water, a feather that shimmered without sunlight, a single unlit candle that smelled faintly of smoke. She gestured for him to sit. "I am not your teacher," she said softly. Her voice was calm, like the surface of a deep lake. "I am only the reminder." He nodded, though he wasn't sure what he was agreeing to. "You've been emptied," she said. "Now you must be filled, but not with answers, with knowing." She placed the bowl of water in front of him. "Look." He peered into it. The surface didn't reflect his face. Instead, he saw the village, not as it was, but as it had been. Children dancing, elders gathering at the tree, a man sitting on a rooftop with his head in his hands, a woman planting seeds beneath the moonlight. "These are memories," she said. "Not yours." "They could be." He blinked. "The images faded." "You don't need to understand them," she added, "only to carry them." She moved the bowl aside and lit the candle with a touch. No spark, no match, just intention. The world you came from, she continued, teaches that learning comes through answers. But here, we learn through presence, through watching, through stillness. That is why most who arrive do not stay. It's not because they are unworthy. It's because they are unwilling to wait. He listened, not just to her words, but to the space between them. She placed the feather in his hand. "What do you feel?" she asked. He held it gently, unsure. "It's light," he said. "It is," she replied, "but not empty." She paused, letting silence teach. "Like you." Her eyes were kind, but steady. She wasn't soothing him. She was holding him accountable in the gentlest way possible. "You are lighter than when you arrived," she said, "but only because you've released the weight of things that were never yours." She stood. "There is one more place you must go before the mountain." "The mountain?" he echoed. She nodded. "That's where the others wait. But first, the mirror house." He followed her again through another narrow path, where the ground became more firm, almost polished. They arrived at a small, round building. No windows, just a single door carved with a spiral. She placed her hand on the door, but did not open it. "You must go alone," she said. "What's inside?" "Yourself." And then she turned and walked away. He stood for a while, unsure whether he wanted to know what that meant. But the door opened without his touch. Inside it was dim, but not dark. There were mirrors, but not like the ones he had known. These did not reflect his current self. Each one held a version of him he had forgotten. The child who used to sing without shame, the young man who once cried over a poem, the face he wore when he lied to himself, the person he became when he loved without defense. He didn't look away. He let each reflection pass through him like wind, like truth, like memory. And when he reached the final mirror, he saw not his face, but his breath, rising and falling, soft and even, alive. The door behind him opened again, and sunlight, true sunlight, poured in. For the first time since arriving, he saw shadows again. He stepped outside, and the village felt warmer. Or maybe it was him. The wind stirred the bells in the branches above, and this time, they rang. The bells had finished ringing, or maybe they hadn't actually rung. Maybe it was just that all the noise inside him had finally died down enough for him to notice them. Either way, their soft, silvery sound hung in the air, a gentle blessing. Quiet, peaceful, very real. The village felt more real, too. Not that the village itself had changed, but he had. The colors seemed brighter, the edges sharper, and even the air felt thicker, heavier. Not heavy with sadness, but with a sense of place. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs, and it felt like coming home to something he'd been missing his whole life. He walked along the winding paths through the village center, past the old tree with the lanterns still lit. He saw people he knew, not just faces he remembered, but people he truly saw. A kid smiled at him as they walked by. An older man nodded his head from across the way. A woman was humming to herself as she stood over an open fire, stirring a pot. Everything was just as it always was. Yet everything was different now. He went to find the old woman, the one who had spoken to him when he first arrived. She was standing near the well, holding a cup of water in both hands, looking out at the horizon. "You have visited the mirror house," she said, without even turning around. He nodded. "I saw things I didn't even know I remembered." "It is good," she said. "Now comes the question." He didn't need to ask what she meant. He already knew. She turned to face him, her eyes calm and kind. "Some people stay," she said. "Not many, but some. They build lives here, quiet and calm. Others take the peace they find here back out into the world with them, back into all the noise. He closed his eyes, thinking of everything he'd left behind. The noise, the rush, the never-ending motion. But also the people, still running, still searching, who had never heard the bells. "What if I forget?" he asked. "You will," she answered. "Sometimes." He opened his eyes. "But the quiet will remember you." He took a breath, a long, slow breath. He held it, then let it out. "What would I do out there?" he asked. "You'd live," she said, "but slower. You'd speak, but softer. You'd listen more. You'd pay attention. You'd carry this village with you, even if you never spoke of it." He smiled, a small, genuine smile. "I don't want to leave," he said. "You already did," she answered. "The second you asked that question." He understood. She turned back to the well and carefully poured the water back in, like she was returning something she had borrowed. Then she reached into her pocket and pulled out something small, a single smooth stone that felt cool in his hand. "This is a reminder," she said. "Does it do anything?" "No." She smiled. "That's the whole trick." He slipped it into his pocket. It felt heavier than he expected. He looked up at the mountains. They were still there, waiting. Huge, blue, silent. But they didn't seem so far away anymore. They seemed ready. He took a step. Not fast, not slow, just forward. He didn't say goodbye, and no one in the village did either. Goodbyes were for places you never planned on seeing again. The village wasn't that. It was a place to come back to, not because you had to, but because you wanted to. As he walked past the last houses, he saw a man carving wood. The man looked up, gave a small smile, and handed him something. A little wooden bird, its wings folded, asleep. He nodded his thanks and kept walking. Past the last stone wall, the land turned wild. The grass grew taller. The wind felt cooler, and the air was clearer. The sounds of the village faded behind him, replaced by the sound of his own breathing. There was no path, just a direction. With every step, he felt the village inside him, in the way his feet touched the earth, in the way his lungs filled with air, in the way his mind stayed calm. He walked under trees that arched like doorways and crossed a stream that barely made a sound. Finally, he stopped at the bottom of the mountain. It wasn't a barrier, but a chance. He sat down to rest, to catch his breath. He didn't need a sign. He just needed a moment. As he sat there between the quiet and the noise, he made a promise. Not to the village, not to the mountain, but to himself. "I will move slowly." The wind heard him and answered with peace.